Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Okay. I'm going to start off by basically saying this. I was planning on actually not having any more episodes for this week, certainly for here Wednesday and then Friday. On Monday morning, I woke up at 1 a.m. With a fever, huge fever. And basically, the diverticulitis that I had a number of years ago immediately came back. And it hurts like hell, as you would expect. It's basically lower abdominal pain on the left-hand side like nobody's business. You can't walk. You've got a fever. You're sweating constantly. You don't want to move. And, that's basically it. And, of course, you're completely out of it. You know, you're not thinking clearly because you have a fever and everything else. So anyway, the last 24 plus hours I've had a fever, but it's pretty much gone now. I'm not sure what else to say other than I didn't go to the doctor and I didn't go to a hospital, thank God, because I basically know how to treat it here at home, which is kind of nice. I took 24 milligrams of ivermectin. I took over 24 on 2 separate occasions. I took bromelain and some, soursop tea and diverticulitis tea, oddly enough, which apparently can be purchased on Amazon relatively quickly. So all of that seemed to work. Again, a combination just drinking a bunch of water, not moving, and just sweating buckets. That's basically all that you can do. But it is the first 24 hours are absolute hell. There's no doubt about that. And unfortunately, this is just one of those reoccurring things. It's something I'll probably experience for the rest of my life, even if I make particular moves in my diet or improve particular things, I guess. Again, I basically eat everything, and I don't even eat very often. So I really don't know what I'll change. It'll be a few things, I'm certain. I'll change a couple of things, but other than that, yeah. If you've ever had diverticulitis, you know what I'm talking about. Again, it's an inflammation of the large intestine, and it's not fun. It's just a constant ache, basically, on your belt line, right on your lower left side, and then, you don't want to bend over. And your legs, I mean, the weird part is always my legs. I have strong legs, thank God, but for some reason, I mean, when the diverticulitis kicks in, it's like you have Gumby legs, and you don't want to walk, and you feel like you have no strength, and it's just very strange. It's a strange feeling. But either way, I think it was just last night. I was like, I can't do this. There's no flipping way. And then I woke up again over 24 hours after having it, and I feel better, which is great. So here I am, back at it again. All right. Anyway, I don't know how long this episode is going to be because I was, of course, completely off grid the other day and out of commission. And I apologize if I sound lethargic in any way. I certainly am. It's not, it's not pleasant waking up every few hours covered in sweat and wiping yourself off only to try to find a comfortable position to fall back asleep in. But either way, I did have things lined up here, so let me get right to it. First of all, I'm just going to start with some audio here. I don't know where this came from or how long ago this was, certainly during Biden's fake administration, but it's a conversation that's taking place between Mitt Romney and Anthony Blinken. And they are at the McCain Institute. And they're on stage, and again, this is about a minute and a half, to almost 2 minutes, I guess. And Mitt Romney, well, I'll basically just let it play here, but he's asking the same kind of question that you've heard numerous times, or I should say even the same kinds of statements that you've heard numerous times from endless politicians, all of which who are corrupt and all of which believe that they own us. And that they are somehow the harbingers of truth, and we can't figure anything out, and if it weren't for them, we wouldn't exist, and so on and so forth. But he basically says again, why is it that people don't trust government? And why is it that people don't trust Israel? He says Israel used to have the best public relations teams and the best public relations people, and if they said something, everybody believed it. So why all of a sudden is that not the case? It's very similar as what I'm sure you've heard, and I'm certain I've played here on the show, is when it comes to the medical industry. And you hear people working for the CDC or running the CDC or running the FDA or any of these other medical agencies. And then the congressional hearings that they're in that will say the American public doesn't trust you and we have to, quote unquote, build back that trust. See, that part of it for me is pretty crystal clear that these are psychopaths and that they actually believe that once they've killed us, that they can get us to trust them again in the future. And given the fact that they've lied to us for, hell, centuries, and certainly decades in recent times, that again, we're just going to go back and immediately start trusting them, that we're going to visit their websites more and take in their information and inject ourselves with more things. Or again, just blindly believe Israel on any political issue whatsoever. I mean, these people are nuts. So I'm going to let Mitt Romney and Anthony Blinken have this brief discussion, and then you'll hear their actual excuse, and it's rather comical. So here's that audio of these two nitwits in 3, 2, 1.
Why has the PR been so awful? I know that's not your area of expertise, but you have to have some thoughts on that, which is, I mean, as you said, why has Hamas disappeared in terms of public perception? An offer is on the table to have a ceasefire, and yet the world is screaming about Israel. It's like, why aren't they screaming about Hamas? Accept the ceasefire, bring home the hostages. It's said it's all the other way around. Typically, the Israelis are good at PR. What's happened here? How have they and we been so ineffective at communicating the realities there? And
we're on an intravenous feed of information with new impulses, inputs every millisecond. And of course, the way this is played out on social media has dominated the narrative. And you have a social media ecosystem environment in which context, history, facts get lost, and the emotion, the impact of images dominates. And we can't discount that. But I think it also has a very, very, very challenging effect on the narrative.
Yeah, a small parenthetical point, which is some wonder why there was such overwhelming support for us to shut down potentially TikTok or other entities of that nature. If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok broadcasts. So I'd note that's of real interest, and the president will get the chance to make action in that regard.
Again, the exact opposite is true of every single thing that they said. They're both pathological liars. They're trying to control everything. They're trying to control us. And ladies and gentlemen, they have to do one of two things. They either have to shut down the internet or they have to kill us. That's basically it. They've worked really hard to try to kill us. They've been very successful for a very long time. And at the exact same time, they haven't fully exhausted all of their options, and they certainly have more of them, and shutting down social media, of course, is one of them, because they, of course, blame social media as being the problem. Therefore, people who are on social media are the problem, because if we aren't perpetuating the same messages that they are, then we're the enemy. This is government openly telling us that we are the enemy. He says that images get lost and real history gets lost and facts get lost and 1,000 other things. No, it's the exact opposite. This is where people are realizing that they've been lied to their whole lives about everything. This is where people are realizing that they've been a part of a matrix of brainwashing that they were born into and are waking up from. Social media, again, depending on what you do on it, and as you've heard me say before, there's really two kinds of people on social media. There's the vain, who take pictures of themselves and, wearing clothing or just smiling into the camera and then posting it to see if I don't know. It's disgusting. You have those weirdos. But then you have individuals on social media who seek to educate and seek to wake people up. Those are the two divides that exist on social media. Yes, there's, some variations somewhere in between where people are just posting pictures of their cat, or their garden or whatever it may be, and it's not always the most productive. It can, be a nice image, I suppose, but at the exact same time, it's not necessarily serving a much higher purpose, I don't think. But again, for those who are doing the real educating on social media, I certainly like to think that I'm one of those people. That really is, I think, the main use of that weapon. And social media is a weapon. And if that's what you're doing on social media, then perfect. That's the point. Again, you're talking to a guy who was not on social media any year before, I guess it would have been January of 2021. I mean, I wrote endless chapters and certainly articles and a number of other things, gave lectures about the dangers of social media, in particular among youth, and then their brainwashed parents, and then other individuals, and how dangerous it is, in particular, again, when it comes to vanity and exhibitionism and voyeurism and things of that nature. Because again, unfortunately, that's what a great deal of it is. But they specifically target TikTok because of its ease of use. And then at the exact same time, the speed with which people are gaining information and hearing other people's takes. Again, it's not to say that there isn't a psychological operation aspect to what goes on sometimes on TikTok. There are endless people who, will panic the crowd, or, I don't know, stir the pot in a perceived positive direction, but in fact, it just ends up being a lie. So that happens too. But even so, it is social media itself, and certainly the more moral human beings, I like to think, that are on social media, that those are the individuals who are doing the educating and the unlearning and the deprogramming, and that really is its purpose. But I do find it comical that Mitt Romney has no problem openly admitting that Israel doesn't have good, quote-unquote, public relations anymore, because let's face it, public relations is the business of lying. So it certainly takes a particular kind of personality in order to work within public relations, or all of the outstretches of public relations, because what you're doing is you're trying to get people to believe something that may or may not be real, usually not real, or perpetuate a particular lie, or at the very least, make the individual who's buying into it, monetarily speaking, actually believe that your services are the only services that exist, and you need to believe our messaging and the way that we do things because this is the best way to get things done. It's ultimately, again, taking advantage of people. You're taking advantage of the less knowledgeable. And that's a serious problem, but it isn't working anymore because people have been lied to, certainly with a high level of regularity over the last 4+ years. I mean, hell, it goes back to 2016. We all remember the faces of the Hillary Clinton voters and supporters when she lost, and lost overwhelmingly. They were completely deceived, and we knew it. We knew that that's what was happening throughout 2015 and 2016. All the late night talk show hosts all saying Hillary has a 98% chance of winning. Don't even bother voting because Hillary's already got it wrapped up, and this, that, and the other. All of that, again, it was a blatant lie back then, and it was easy for a great deal of us to obviously see, which is why we don't watch TV anymore, and we don't participate in those bread and circus nonsense activities anymore, because there's a real world out there that doesn't involve public relations, evil propaganda, and manipulation. Again, the truth will make you free. There's no doubt about that. And it does. But these are the real blackmailed gatekeepers, the Mitt Romneys of the world, the Anthony Blinkens of the world. The heinous things that these guys have done to even get where they are has to be unspeakable. Absolutely unspeakable. Not to mention, again, the open hubris to actually sit on a stage at the McCain Institute of all places. I mean, I thought everybody at this point knew that John McCain was a traitor to our country, was executed for being a traitor, voted against the complete repeal of Obamacare, and then shortly after was quote unquote diagnosed with cancer, and then boom, bam, he's dead. And then, of course, all the open clips that exist of people basically saying that he was put to death. Like, who is it? John Kasich said it on CNN, if I'm not mistaken. And then, who was it? His own daughter on The View, Meghan McCain, the donut queen capital of the world. I mean, she openly looked at Don Jr. when he was on and said, and was just angry at him for putting her father to death, or his dad putting her father to death, or whatever it was. I mean, these people are open with their illegality and criminality. It's just amazing. So I just wanted to play that audio for you because I thought it was a perfect example of, again, the tide turning. Again, there's no going back from this. Too many people are dead, too many people have been lied to, and too many people have realized what the real truth is. Again, you don't wake up from the Matrix and then fall back asleep. It doesn't mean that the Matrix doesn't consistently try to grab you and pull you back in. It certainly will. But that's why we have a responsibility to stay sharp and stay as sharp as we can and pay attention to things like that. But also, again, I just think that audio clip was a nice admission. It was a nice admission that they've lost. They've already lost. It's already over. Which means, again, if a cornered rabid dog has lost and they're looking around and there's no way out, what do they have left to do? They have other moves that they can make, and they're going to be violent ones. So those are the ones I think that are worth paying attention to. In fact, not to get ahead of myself too much, but I was going to bring this up a little bit later. You may have heard or at least seen, it's certainly on my Gab, I have 2 videos of it over there, but they're dancing again, ladies and gentlemen. Only this time, the dancing isn't quote-unquote COVID nurses. The dancing is from pre-med students. I mean, I can't believe it. It's like, I mean, I can believe it, but it's 2024, and it's like it's 2020 all over again. Instead of COVID dancing nurses in these pre-planned, choreographed things, they're actually using the dancing video thing again in an effort to get people to want to be pre-med students. And this is happening at Columbia, Harvard, probably other places. And again, the one thing, of course, that they're not telling people as they're dancing and bragging about being pre-med students or being in residency or whatever the hell they're doing, they're not telling people that they're at least double, if not triple jabbed, and that you have to be with the COVID bioweapon to even attend. But the very evil propaganda practice of these choreographed dances is happening again. This is not an accident. This is a giant script. And again, they're using it for the purposes, among many, I'm sure, to try to get individuals to either enroll in I don't know, pre-med education or pre-med schools or programs or whatever. I can't I can't imagine anybody wanting to be a medical student these days, let alone a nurse. The only people who want to are the only people who are completely dead asleep as to what's gone on here. They actually believe that the whole industry is morally sound and has done nothing but help people, in particular over the last 4 years. The exact opposite is true. And it's not just the dancing. I saw this the other day. Again, beyond disgusting. But this is another tactic that I'm certain is not an accident. It was a blonde girl, and she's filming herself talking on a cell phone, which is quite a task. But she's filming herself talking on a cell phone, what is she doing? It's so tasteless and beyond weird. She was having a conversation with her dead mother. Now wrap your head around that one. But she pretended to call her dead mother and tell her dead mother that she had been accepted to medical school and that it was a dream come true, but her mother died just a year or so ago and she would have loved to have heard this call, and I just wanted to make my mom proud. Wrap your head around all the levels of that brainwashing. First of all, how did her mom die? COVID shots? Probably. Number two, again, just the self-absorbed, vain behavior of calling your quote-unquote dead mother and then filming yourself because you think that this is what she would have enjoyed, and had she been alive, this is what it would have looked like, and 1,000 other things. I mean, it's beyond disgusting. Not to mention, to be a pre-med student or accepted to medical school, you have to be jabbed with at least 2 COVID shots, if not boosted, so you're at least 3 deep or more. That girl's going to be dead in no time. Meanwhile, her mother in heaven is going, no, stop, don't, quit, back out now. I mean, it has to be that way. So right now, there is a massive evil propaganda move to get people into medical school. And we know why. It's because it's an open admission. It's a subliminal message that people are not entering medical school because they know that it can't be trusted, that the business and profession cannot be trusted. So they got to do whatever they can to, increase enrollment because they don't want their medical schools to completely fail and completely fold. They've got to bring out all the propaganda tools that they possibly can, all the evil propaganda tools, and then of course they got to bring back all the choreographed dancers and all that horse shit. It's so gross. It's so disgusting. Okay, that's that. Moving on, although, let me bring this up. I was holding on to this for quite some time. It kind of falls in line here. This is from the Daily Mail the other day, about 6 or 7 days ago. And it's titled, "As Research Warns IQ is Falling for First Time Ever, Our Map Reveals Average Scores in Every U.S. State." It says, average IQ levels in the United States dropped to 98, falling below the national standards. Experts believe the drop in IQ levels is due to increased technology use. I mean, it's possible. All that's possible. Like I said earlier, the social media stuff and technology use is a double-edged sword. It just depends on what you're doing when you're on it. If you're using it for educational purposes, that's one thing. If you're using it for vanity, materialism, and all that other, again, exhibitionism nonsense, well then no. That is most certainly going to drop your IQ. But again, they have a giant map here with the average IQ by state in 2024. No offense, but it looks like, well, let's see. Louisiana, New Mexico, and Mississippi have the lowest, followed by, it looks like Texas, California, Nevada, Arkansas, Alabama, South Carolina, and West Virginia, and then it just kind of goes up from there. But of course, again, it's hilarious that Minnesota has the highest IQ. The average IQ in Minnesota is 102.9. Well, New Hampshire. There we go. Of course. Massachusetts has an average IQ of 103.1, and the smartest state, ladies and gentlemen, in the United States by IQ, allegedly, is New Hampshire with an average IQ of 103.2. Yeah, I'm sure that's the case. Regardless of the type of IQ test, it certainly doesn't measure common sense. And there's, of course, no saying that has to be the case with New Hampshire. Again, very liberal state, very left-wing, majority white, if memory serves, which I suppose is fine. But even so, it doesn't measure common sense. It doesn't measure anybody's ability to apply what's really going on in the world with actual reality and their own practices as humans and what they do on a day in and day out basis. So, who's to know? Either way, I've always found the IQ test to be a bit strange. I remember reading a long time ago that individuals were writing about the IQ test and calling it fraudulent and saying it's not necessarily based on particular, any real measurement. Again, particular puzzles and order of operations and other things from that nature, but it doesn't, it's not a comprehensive grasp of how one's mind actually works or, again, applies what they know to real world situations. It's certainly not in that avenue. But again, it's an old measurement, and I'm assuming they use the original measurement, but who's to know? Either way, let me move on to just a few education things, and then I've got a few jab-related things, and then I'm going to wrap this up. I can actually feel myself starting to sweat again and pass out here. Let's see. This is from VirginiaMercury.com. It was titled, More Than 125 Arrested at 4 Virginia Universities Amid Nationwide Protests Over Israel-Hamas War. I also saw this. This is at Harvard, I believe. Harvard students were blasting the national anthem to all of the sit-in protesters that, again, are just locked up in tents trying to prove some point. And again, I also saw that numerous graduation ceremonies have been canceled and whatever. Okay. I don't know what point they're making other than they're basically catering to the mob. I don't think that's a good approach to take. Everybody deserves to graduate, certainly in a ceremony, if that's the thing they want to do. But there's certainly, again, as I've been over here on the show, and as we're all aware, there's endless Antifa agitators there taking advantage of everybody and taking advantage of the entire scripted protest because, again, this was organized well before November of 2023. Again, that list of 130 some odd universities that are participating in all this. In fact, I should mention this too. I recommend bouncing over to Renette Sunham's foghornexpress.substack.com. She's got a great article there recently about a lot of this protest stuff and what's going on. And she links at the top of her article there on Substack a clip from the documentary The Lobby, which of course I've brought up on the show, and I wrote a Substack about that quite some time ago. But I got in the comments section, and I don't know who said this or where this came from, but that particular this particular clip that she has on her Substack page, or this particular article, there's a caption below it that says that this clip was removed from the United States or something along those lines, that it can't be found anywhere or whatever. Well, that clip is in the documentary The Lobby. And the documentary The Lobby exists basically everywhere. It's certainly on my BitChute channel. It's on my Rumble channel. It's all over BitChute and Rumble. So if you want to watch the whole documentary The Lobby, I highly recommend it. It's over 3 hours long. But I got in the comment section and I told her that. I said, you can watch this clip and the entire documentary The Lobby because this is the documentary it's from. It's a must watch. Here's a link to my BitChute channel where you can watch it. She read the comment and thanked me and said that she would watch it and certainly look into it. And, that's great. I hope she does. It's a mind bender, and it proves that, again, the Jewish lobby has its hands in all of this. It's playing every possible angle that you can imagine as to what's going on here, and everybody's being taken advantage of. Again, we have a common enemy. And if people don't start to realize who our common enemy is and that everybody's being manipulated, I mean, we're too fractured and we're too divided. It would help to get on the same side. Okay, here's the next thing I want to play, and this is the next piece of audio I have for you. I want to play this. I'm gonna let it speak for itself. I'm just gonna let it play here again. It's about 4 minutes long, and this has to do with a female who is associated with, or maybe even runs, the organization Moms Across America. Now, I don't know their entire body of work, okay, as an organization, but I will say this. What she's doing and what she's asking the FDA to do, because in this audio clip she describes meeting with the FDA about, again, poisoned cereals, poisoned food, glyphosate, poisoning the crops, 1,000 other things. I don't know how naive you have to be to actually think that you can walk into the FDA, organize a meeting with the FDA as an organization in America, give them research on how the FDA is allowing Americans to be poisoned to death and consistently sick, and then actually think that the FDA is going to give a damn about what you think or have to say. They're in the business of killing people. That's what they do. That's like walking into a mafia meeting room in a pizzeria and asking them to not eat pizza and talk about how they're going to steal from people and kill people. I know that's a stereotype, but even so, you get what I'm saying. The naivete of this is beyond anything. So I'm just going to play her audio here. You can give this a listen, and then I'll come in on the other end with just a few comments. So give this a listen here in 3, 2, 1.
Hi guys, this is Zen Honeycutt of Moms Across America. I'm outside the FDA, and we just met with the FDA, with the head of Human Foods Department, the Deputy Commissioner, Jim Jones. So we got a meeting with the policymakers, Ann Conrad, who is the head of another division. I don't have his title here right now, and 2 other women that are, play important role in the FDA. And we presented all of the facts about our findings on school lunches, fast food, loaded cereal. We gave them initial preliminary studies on baby food and Girl Scout cookies and gluten-free food, which we are still processing those results, but they are very toxic and it's very upsetting. So we gave them preliminary results, and we talked about the fact that they are the policymakers and decision makers to make sure that people have access to safe, non-toxic, nutrient-dense food. And they kept talking about how, they are doing this, they are doing that. We're very glad. I mean, we do not envy them their jobs. This is a very difficult job that they have, okay? And they kept mentioning how they have to stay in their lanes. And, the EPA has their regulations, like they set the regulatory limits. For example, 30,000 parts per billion of glyphosate that's allowed on wheat, right, which is ridiculously high. So the EPA sets the limits and the FDA regulates. And they do the testing to make sure that the food doesn't exceed those limits. And I brought up the fact that they could be doing a better job of that. For instance, out of the top 25 most widely used herbicides, I saw a list back when I was on the Organic Products Advisory Board for the Secretary of Agriculture in California as a consumer representative. I looked at the list of what the FDA was testing for, what the California FDA was testing for, and what the top 25 most widely used herbicides that are used in America, what they are. And the FDA was only testing for 2 of them. And the California FDA was only testing for 3 of them. And they were coming out with reports saying, well, 98% of the samples, the 1,200 samples, for instance, that we tested for, did not exceed the EPA's regulatory limits for residues, right? For pesticide residues. Yeah, but if you can't say 98% of the samples did not exceed the regulatory limits if you're only testing for 2 out of the top 25 pesticides. You guys get what I'm talking about here? That is misleading. So we brought that up again to them. Like, for instance, they haven't been testing for paraquat. Paraquat has been directly connected to Parkinson's. It's been sprayed on our food for like 40 years. They are not doing their jobs. They need to do a better job. And so we brought this to their attention. Jim Jones seemed very attentive. Conrad also seemed very attentive. They said that, they want our data. They're going to be working on it. They're going to be, doing other things. But when they kept talking about having to stay in their lanes, my call to action was like, hey, how about we get the EPA and the FDA and the USDA together and everybody works together? That's what we do as moms. We bring together the people at church and the sports groups and the birthday parties, right? We bring community together. So we are going to be calling for a meeting where the EPA, the FDA, the USDA all work together to create a safer food supply and to stop shirking their responsibilities and pointing in the other direction that the other people are responsible. We need to do something about this now. There's no time to waste. We have major mental health, physical health, and reproductive health issues because of the toxins in the food supply. So please stay tuned. We will tell you what the result of this is. We are going to be following up with them with the data. We are going to be following up with more requests for them. And thank you for your support. If it's $1, $5, $5,000, we so appreciate it. We need to be coming back here and holding them to account, because God knows the chemical companies are spending millions and millions of dollars to have lobbyists telling them, oh, we need these chemicals as a tool. We need, to use GMOs. And folks, this is not true. Farmers have been farming for thousands of years, thousands of generations without toxic chemicals. They can continue to do it, and they must do it in order to protect the future of the human race. So please stay tuned. Thank you so much, everybody.
Ann Honeycutt from Moms Across America. Okay, let me spend some time on this, but before I do, I want to preface it by describing the word cynicism. What I'm going to say is not me being cynical. Cynicism is an emotion that a person has when they don't know what they're talking about. They don't understand a subject, they don't understand how to solve a problem, they don't understand a particular avenue of thought, and they actually know nothing about what's really going on, so they just give a blanket dismissive answer. So someone who is cynical will say, well, that'll never work. Something like that. That'll never happen. But the underlying part of that statement, which is the cynical part, is that the person actually knows nothing about the subject for which they're speaking on. Okay? So what I'm going to say is not cynical, and it's not cynicism. It's the exact opposite. I'm being knowledgeable about what's really gone on in the world, who the FDA is, and of course, clearly, I think it's rather clear, what this organization is seeking to do as far as the Moms Across America. Like I said at the top before the audio, I don't know her whole body of work. I don't know what they've done or what they have not done as some organization. So I'll start here. The FDA is certainly doing their job. They know exactly what they're doing. They're in the business of killing people. It's that simple. And you have to be a certain level of naive in order to not recognize that fact. And that's not my truth, quote unquote, for all you weirdos out there who actually use that particular phrase. It's not a my truth. Well, that's just your truth, Sean. No. No, that is the truth. Because there is only the truth. If you don't know that the FDA has always been in the business of killing people, then you're out to lunch. If you don't know that the moment that Ann Honeycutt, or whatever the hell her name is, I've already forgotten it, that the moment that she walked out of that meeting and handed them all of their studies and papers and XYZ, that the FDA just grabbed the trash can right next to them, took their other arm and slid all of those studies and facts and inconvenient truths right off of the table and into the trash can. If you don't know that that's exactly what happened when they walked out of that room, then again, you're out to lunch, because that's what happened. The FDA doesn't give a shit about human beings. That's why they're the FDA. That's why they work for the FDA. They're in the business of making money on illness. Hello? What do you think they're actually going to do? Ban the thing that's making them money? So no, again, to her comment, when she said they're not doing their jobs, quite the contrary. They're doing their jobs and they do them very well. Very well. And then as you heard, she said, we need a congressional hearing on this, that, and the other. We need to get all these groups together and get them to lie to Americans, because that's basically all they're going to do anyway. And, and oh, by the way, if you want to donate $1, $10, or $5,000 to us, please do that, because we need to keep getting the message out there, and this is important. She's fooling herself. They're all fooling themselves. The FDA should be destroyed. Clean food should just be the norm. It should just be the way. If you want to have a regulatory agency, that regulatory agency, of course, shouldn't be controlled by the Jewish lobby, and they shouldn't be controlled by anybody who's interested in making money on poisoning people. But that's not the world we live in. Government agencies exist for the sole purpose of lying to Americans for a living. If she doesn't get that, she's an idiot. And I just don't think she's that bright. Now, regarding her organization, I think she's a grifter. It's just another grift operation, using the whole mother's title. Us moms, we have to stick together for our kids because when we're not at soccer games and organizing birthday parties and doing stereotypical mom shit, well, you need to be donating to us because we're going after the real enemy. No, all that money is doing is it's going to you buying a new wardrobe, going to New York City or other cities, touring the entire nation, staying at high-end hotels, so that you can have a useless conversation and make it look like you're doing something with your time and your life. Again, everything I just said is a fact. It is not cynicism. The FDA should be destroyed. The CDC should be destroyed. These are the same organizations that continue to push shots on people, and she's worried about fucking Fruit Loops. Are Fruit Loops poison? Of course they are. It says it on the goddamn box. It says it on the side of the box. That's not the issue. That's bad parenting. If you're giving your kids Captain Crunch and Fruit Loops with all those dyes, preservatives, and bioengineered toxins, that's your problem. The FDA's in the business of killing people, but if you as a parent are giving the thing to your kids that the FDA approves, then who's the killer? Who's really doing the poisoning? See, this is a mirror that has to be held up to everybody. That's the issue here. It's self-governance. It's abolition. It's getting away from everything that the government wants to push on you, and you should say no. That's the whole point. But paying this woman in her mom's organization, because us moms, we have it harder than anybody else. Give me a break. She's pissing into a fan, and she's wasting her time. That's my take. You can disagree, that's fine. She's wasting her time. She's not teaching people about self-governance. She's attempting to go up against government. The same government that is immovable does not get held accountable for anything. Again, the jab genocide that's taken place right now has killed more people than the Palestinian Gaza genocide, and it's killed more people than Fruit Loops. But she's worried about Fruit Loops. Again, I'm not saying she hasn't spoken out against the shots. That's not what I'm saying. I'm certain she has, probably has. Why not? But there are bigger issues here. And if you think that you can tug on the cape of government and get them to not be who they are and why they were created in the first place, you've lost your flippin' mind. You've lost your mind. Okay, let me read through these headlines very quickly. I'm in a text thread with Sandy, Jesse James, and another gal from Texas, and we post stuff back and forth with some regularity here. There were a variety of posts here having, of course, to do with the CDC and all these news outlets, again, CBS, Politico, Vox, Reuters, the New York Times, pushing the whole avian flu / bird flu stuff. And they're pushing it hard. And it's ramping up. It's, again, a different timeline. We're in May now. It's not, it's not February and March of 2020, but it's 4 years later and a few months later. Anyway, it goes on here too regarding not just that, but also a variety of deaths that individuals are quote unquote dying suddenly again. Well, it's not an again thing, of course. It's just it's a constant thing. So let me read through again some of these headlines. The first one was 4-year NBA veteran unexpectedly passes away. Let me click on this here real quick and get it to pop up. Darius Morris, was a guard for the Lakers, 76ers, Clippers, Grizzlies, and Nets. And he was 33 years old. Interesting number. Eric Alvaranja, Glen Cove native who aspired to play pro soccer, dies at 18. Wonder what from. There's another one here. Looks like a lacrosse player. This is from wickedlocal.com. Quote, he'd want us to keep going. Skydeweight, I don't know how to pronounce that. My apologies. Boys lacrosse dealing with loss of assistant coach. Okay, their assistant coach died. High school boys lacrosse program experienced a tragic loss Friday with the unexpected passing of assistant coach Harold Gerbis, 31 years old. Wonder what from. Let's see. Police officer dies unexpectedly. Here's another one in New Jersey. Hart High School mourns unexpected loss of Principal Troy Moran. Mother of 3 teacher dies after complaining about a headache. Wonder what from. Youth soccer player dies from collapsing during game in Waynesville, Missouri. Yep, Missouri. There's another one here. Former Michigan linebacker Obi Eza dies at age 36. Former Michigan basketball star dies at 33. I think it was that same guy I mentioned earlier. Yeah, and there you go. Wonder what from. Wonder what the thing they all have in common is. There's also this. This is from WHIO.com. Police Department mourning unexpected death of veteran Ohio detective. Detective Brett Johnson, 20 dedicated years of service. Let's see. Columbus, Ohio. A police department is mourning the loss of a veteran Ohio detective. Again, Brett Johnson, 42, died unexpectedly on Monday. We extend our deepest condolences to the Detective Johnson's wife and his children, as well as his friends and family, as they navigate this unimaginable loss. And that's the end of the story. That's it. Columbus police said in a statement, unquote. That's it. Yep. A young-looking guy. Worked there for 20 years. That would probably put him in his 40s. Just dead. Just like that. You know, because 40-year-olds just drop over dead. Again, people aren't thinking. What's the one thing they all have in common? Just ask yourselves that question. But they won't ask themselves that question. And this is happening in police departments all over the United States. Some police departments mandated the shots. Again, they thought it was mandatory. It wasn't. But they just wiped out their own police departments. They should all be looking at each other and saying, he was jabbed. It was the jabs. That's exactly what did it. And who else here is jabbed? Well, get your affairs in order because, you know, you're looking at your future right here. It's unbelievable. Just the total cognitive dissonance that exists here is next level. Here's the last thing, of course. This, of course, was good news, although too little too late, I'm afraid. This is from petersweden.substack.com. That AstraZeneca, of course, has withdrawn their COVID vaccine. They've stopped producing their COVID injection. It says from the 7th of May, their COVID injection will no longer be marketed in Europe. Although here, probably still, but not in Europe anyway. It says the impact this will have cannot be understated. AstraZeneca have announced that they've stopped producing their COVID injection and it's being withdrawn from the EU market. Well, it did exactly what it was intended to do. That's all. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. And now, again, people are stale on it because they're either dead or they've recognized what's gone on and no one's running to the store and asking for an AstraZeneca shot. Not to mention, you don't see AstraZeneca commercials anywhere. It's all Pfizer. Pfizer this, Pfizer that. And then, of course, you had Albert Bourla just the other day on MSNBC, if memory serves, and he was touting their new cancer shot. That they're working on some shot related to cancer, and that, don't worry, we're very excited about this because, well, the shot that we give you next that's going to have mRNA in it is going to cure your cancer. There are people who believe this. I don't have the words. He can go on TV and act as if the people he's speaking to and the audience listening has no idea what's really going on. He apparently hasn't even heard the term turbo cancer and the number of individuals that are diagnosed and then die the next day. And it's because they're all jabbed with the same mRNA poison and nanotech poison. But don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, Moms Across America is going to solve that problem with a few more meetings with the FDA about Fruit Loops and poisoning the crops, and maybe they'll get around again to telling them that the nanotech mRNA shots for cancer are actually going to give people cancer. Maybe they'll get around to that one someday. Unbelievable. Again, people are, if you're this naive at this stage of the game, as horrible as this is to even say, if you're this naive, this is a thinning of the herd. It truly is. It's just the natural order of things now at this point. If you're still believing these people, and you're quote unquote willing to try things, or just, medical doctors on TV have said that this particular thing will work, so I should just believe them. If you blindly believe complete strangers, you have coming all of the consequences that comes with believing complete strangers. Certainly at this point. Unbelievable. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going back to bed. I'm exhausted. Thanks for listening, as always, and I will catch you on Friday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.